Before we start, I suggest you to subscribe for more creepy content. Before we dive in, grab your favorite blanket and those tasty snacks you've been craving. We encourage you to share your thoughts in the comment section below. Let us know which tales you believe are real and which ones might have come straight from a storyteller's mind. So, without further ado, let the chilling stories begin. I was at home, getting ready for Halloween night. The air was crisp, and the decorations were up. Pumpkins on the porch, cobwebs in the corners. As night fell, I decided to embrace the spirit of the holiday and pass out candy to trick-or-treaters. I sat by the door with a bowl of sweets, the porch light casting an inviting glow. The wind rustled the leaves, and I could hear the distant laughter of kids in costumes. Then, I heard it. A soft knock on the door. I grinned, thinking the first trick-or-treater had arrived. I got up, opened the door, and there he stood, a person in a ghost face mask, the kind that you see in those horror movies. "Trick or treat," he said, his voice muffled by the mask. I chuckled and reached for the candy bowl. But as I glanced at him because he didn't have a bag for candy, just stood there in that eerie mask. I raised an eyebrow and tried to make light of it. No bag for treats. He didn't respond, just stared at me with those empty eye holes. I felt a shiver run down my spine, like I was being scrutinized by something beyond that mask. "Hang on," I said, trying to break the tension. "I'll get you a bag." I stepped inside to grab a spare candy bag, but when I turned around, he were gone. The porch was empty. I shook my head, thinking maybe he'd gotten spooked and left. I went back to my seat, but before I could settle in, I heard another knock on the door. My heart skipped a beat. Could it be the same person? I opened the door cautiously, my eyes scanning the darkness. And there he was again, the person in the ghost face mask. "Trick or treat," he repeated. I hesitated, my unease growing. "Hey, do you want a bag for your candy?" He didn't respond, just stood there, his presence feeling more unsettling than before. I handed him a candy bag, and he took it without a word, like a silent observer. I watched him go down the porch steps. I was on edge, my heart racing, as I closed the door and locked it. Maybe it was just a weird prank, I tried to convince myself. As the night continued, I kept glancing out the window, half expecting to see that ghost face mask staring back at me. Every sound, every gust of wind had me jumping. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that something was lurking just out of sight. Hours passed, and Halloween night quieted down. I was ready to put the strange encounter behind me. But then, just as I was getting ready to go to bed, I heard it, the sound of footsteps on the porch. I rushed to the door, my hands trembling. I flung open the door, and there he was again, the person in the ghost face mask. He was holding the candy bag, but it was empty, his gloved fingers gripping it tightly. "Trick or treat," he said, his voice colder than before. Fear gripped me, and I stumbled back, my mind racing with thoughts of danger. "Who are you? What do you want?" He didn't answer, just stood there. And then, without another word, he turned and walked away into the darkness. I slammed the door shut, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. I locked every door and window, trying to keep out the feeling of dread that had settled over me. Who was that person? What did he want? Halloween came and went, but the memory of that sinister trick-or-treater lingered. It was Halloween night, and I was hanging out with my friends at my place. We decided to have a scary movie marathon, complete with popcorn, chips, and candies. My parents were away for the night, so we had the whole house to ourselves. The atmosphere was fun, but it was also a little spooky with all the Halloween decorations around the house and the rain pouring outside. Then, out of nowhere, the lights went out. The room was plunged into darkness, and we all let out a collective groan. We scrambled to find our phones and used their flashlights to navigate. With nothing else to do, someone suggested doing something creepy, like a Ouija board. We thought it would be fun, just to see if anything spooky would happen. We lit candles, We drew a makeshift board on a piece of paper and used an upside-down glass as our planchette. We started asking questions like, "Is anyone here with us?" and "Can you show us a sign?" At first, nothing happened. But then, the glass began to move on its own. It spelled out the word "leave." We froze, thinking one of us was moving it intentionally. But they all swore they weren't. We continued to ask questions, and the answers became even more chilling. It claimed to be someone who had lived in the house long ago, and they were not happy with our presence. The room felt cold, and the air was heavy. Suddenly, we heard strange noises coming from different parts of the house. Footsteps, whispers, and doors creaking. Things were getting scary, and someone suggested that perhaps we should stop, as we were going too far. Just as we were about to panic, the lights flickered back on. The room was once again filled with light, and the strange occurrences stopped. We were all shaken and didn't know what to make of it. We decided to call it a night, and my friends left, still spooked by what had happened. I couldn't help but wonder if the ritual we had performed had somehow opened a door to the unknown. That Halloween night, we learned that sometimes it's best not to dabble with the supernatural, even in the safety of your own home. The memory of that haunting experience would stay with us forever, a chilling tale to share with others who were brave enough to listen. It was Halloween night, and I was all alone at home. I'd carved pumpkins, watched a scary movie, and had a bowl of candy ready for trick-or-treaters. Tired from the evening's activities, I decided to call it a night. I turned off the lights, locked the doors, and crawled into my bed. As I lay there, I could hear the distant laughter of kids trick-or-treating outside. The wind rustled the leaves, creating an eerie atmosphere. I checked my phone one last time, scrolling through social media for a bit. It seemed like a normal, quiet night. Then, just as I was about to fall asleep, a notification pinged on my phone. It was from my front door camera. The message read, "Motion detected." I frowned, thinking it might be a late-night trick-or-treater, but who would be out so late? I mean, I didn't expect someone still trick-or-treating at 2 a.m. I decided to check the camera feed. What I saw sent shivers down my spine. A figure, cloaked in darkness, moved across the screen. They weren't wearing a costume. It was just a shadowy figure, like someone trying to be invisible. My heart raced as I stared at the screen. I knew I had locked the doors, but I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. I watched as the figure slowly approached the front door. That's when I heard it. Faint, but unmistakable, the sound of footsteps in my house. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Who was this intruder in my home on Halloween night? I was alone, defenseless, and my phone was my only lifeline. I gathered my courage and decided to call the police, whispering into the phone, "There's someone in my house." The dispatcher assured me that help was on the way. I clutched the phone tightly, waiting in the darkness, listening to the approaching footsteps. The footsteps grew louder and closer, echoing through the empty hallways. My heart pounded in my chest as I tried to stay as silent as possible. I heard them getting closer and closer to my bedroom door, and then they stopped right outside. I held my breath, hoping the police would arrive soon. The seconds felt like hours. Suddenly, the doorknob turned slowly, and the door creaked open. A cold breeze swept into the room. I couldn't see who it was in the dark, but I knew they were there, just on the other side of the door. And then, a whisper, chilling and malevolent, reached my ears. "Trick or treat." I froze in terror. The figure remained hidden in the darkness. My heart pounded louder as I realized that this intruder wasn't here for candy or pranks. This was something far more unsettling. I whispered into the phone, "The intruder is in my room. Please hurry." The dispatcher assured me again that help was on the way. I was trapped, pinned down in my own room, defenseless. In that moment, I wished for nothing more than the police to arrive. The suspense was unbearable, and the fear gnawed at my soul. I dared not look, for I feared what I might see. All I could do was lie still and pray for the nightmare to end. The minutes dragged on, feeling like an eternity. Finally, I heard the sirens approaching, growing louder and louder until they were right outside my house. The intruder seemed to sense the impending danger and darted away, leaving me alone in my room. The police rushed in, searching every corner of the house, but the intruder had vanished. They assured me that the house was secure, but I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. I couldn't explain what had just happened, but I knew it was no ordinary Halloween prank. To this day, I can't sleep soundly on Halloween night. The memory of that terrifying encounter still haunts me, a reminder that sometimes the line between the real and the supernatural can blur on the spookiest night of the year. I used to love technology, but now it's the source of my darkest nightmares. It all started with a simple sleep app. I'd always had trouble sleeping, so when a friend recommended an app that claimed to monitor sleep patterns and offer soothing sounds, I thought, why not? Little did I know that this decision would lead me down a path of fear and sleepless nights. For the first few weeks, the app worked like a charm. It tracked my sleep cycles, played soothing ocean waves, and helped me drift off into peaceful slumber. My nights were quiet, and my dreams were mostly uneventful. But then, something strange began happening. One night, as I reviewed the app's recorded data, I noticed a peculiar spike in the audio recordings. I played it back and was immediately chilled to the bone. Among the soothing sounds of waves crashing, there were faint, eerie whispers and chilling laughter. But I realized something even more unsettling. I had never heard these sounds during the night. Thinking it might be a prank, I dismissed it. After all, technology can be unpredictable. However, the next night, the whispers and laughter were back, and I couldn't deny their presence in the recordings. My room had always been quiet, and I'd never experienced anything like this during my sleep. Panic set in as I contemplated the implications. Was someone messing with me? Perhaps the developer of the app had some malicious intent. I reached out to my friend who had suggested the app, but he insisted that he hadn't experienced any strange sounds on their end. As the weeks passed, the disturbances escalated. The whispers and laughter grew more distinct, yet I continued to sleep peacefully, oblivious to the horrors recorded in the app. It was as if someone was messing with me. Desperate for answers, I underwent a sleep study, hoping it would provide insight into the source of my nocturnal torment. The results, however, were inconclusive. No physical abnormalities, no sleep disorders, nothing that could explain the haunting recordings. Doubts and fear consumed me. Perhaps I was going mad. Every morning I'd listen to the app's recordings, hoping for answers, but I remained unable to comprehend the whispers and laughter. One night, as I lay in bed and listened for the unsettling sounds, they simply ceased. The room fell eerily silent, and the ominous presence that had haunted my sleep seemed to have vanished. I couldn't believe my luck, or perhaps misfortune. I continued to use the sleep app, but from that night on, I heard nothing. The eerie sounds had disappeared, leaving me in a state of unease, unsure of their origin and purpose. In the days that followed, I cautiously resumed my life, but the scars of the haunting recordings still lingered. I couldn't shake the feeling that the entity might return. The inexplicable silence was almost more unsettling than the sinister laughter. As time passed, the sleepless nights began to fade into a distant memory. I started to believe that I had escaped the clutches of the enigmatic presence for good. But deep down, I knew that some mysteries could never truly be resolved, and some terrors could never be banished. Now, I keep my phone far from my bedside, and I've come to accept that some secrets are better left undisturbed. To this day, I still don't know what or why it happened.